Welcome to the best seat in the house. It's the Views from the Bucket podcast, where we dive deep into the world of coaching youth baseball. Whether you're a seasoned coach or just starting out, we've got the bases covered. Join us as we bring you the best insights, strategies, and stories from the finest minds in the game. From drills and strategies to dealing with players, and even those tricky conversations with parents, we've got it all right here. So grab a seat on the old bucket and knock it out of the park with Views from the Bucket.
All right, welcome back to Views from the Bucket, the baseball coaching podcast that is designed for you as coaches. If you're watching, listening, wherever you are, please like, subscribe, and today I'm really excited to introduce my next guest, Kory. He has some experience in high school coaching. He's got his own company too, but he's also been with the Pittsburgh Pirates in Major League Baseball and helped out with coaching there. So there's going to be a ton of information in this episode. Kory DeHaan, welcome. I hope I said your last name right.
That was perfect, Chris. Yes, I've got relatives in Canada, so you probably heard the last name before, but if not, you did a good job.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you. Good. I'm glad I got that right. We're off to a great start. Kory, I'm just wondering if you can we have a lot of newer coaches, especially watching this. Just wondering if you could give a little bit of your background in baseball all the way up to today, and then we'll get started with our main questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got a chance to play the game. Small town Iowa boy, didn't have a chance hardly at all that I would have thought, but I loved the game and stayed after it. My parents never said I couldn't do it. They kept giving me opportunities to compete and play. Ended up making it all the way to the big leagues with the Sandiego Padres. I got drafted by the Pirates, got to play in the big leagues, not a long time, but a couple of years, and amazing experience. Boyhood dreams come true, right? And injuries ended up taking you out of the game, and you're frustrated and you're bitter and you're like, I don't need you, baseball. And you go out into life in the real world and you're like, this isn't as fun as baseball. I kind of like baseball. And so did some soul searching, and they say it's always hard once you're out of the game to get back in, to the pro side at least. And it ended up, I jumped on an opportunity in independent ball. So I was in Northern California, Chico State is where we were out of, played in the Golden League, and I helped coach in like 2009. And then I figured out quickly I don't want to be in independent ball. And then the Padres, the team I had made to the big leagues with, actually connected and said, hey, we got space for you, and jumped in as a hitting coach with the Padres at the Arizona League, and then went to Fort Wayne Low A as a hitting coach, and was progressing. But I had friends still with the Pirates who I'd gotten drafted with, and they came calling and said, hey, we're doing something pretty cool over here. We think you might be interested. And ended up moving from Arizona out to Florida in 2011, 12, and just started on a journey of being a part of an organization that Clint Hurdle, Kyle Stark, Larry Broadway, all these guys, the unbelievable hearts for teaching, and created an atmosphere of growing coaches that I desperately needed, because I got out of the game going, oh my goodness, I could barely give a lesson, let alone even understand what coaching looks like. But the some cool takeaways still, I've got a ton of them, but they taught me. I was eyes wide open, ears wide open, and I just kept my mouth shut. When you're around experienced coaches that are learning the game, it's like, yes, sir. Yep. And I'm writing stuff down, and I'm asking, I'm like, okay, I could apply that. I could apply that. And you learn and you start making it your own. So spent 10 years with the Pirates. We ended up getting let go, ended up going over to IMG for 3 years, because I could stay home. It was literally in my backyard here in Bradenton. And I could stay home with my wife and my 3 daughters as they finished up high school. And as they wrapped up, I just got the itch to start my own thing and say, hey, we can make this better. Amateur baseball can be better. And how could I help do that? And said, hey, let's start a facility and recommendations. You got to start in travel ball. That's where it starts. I'm like, okay, I guess. Let's see what that looks like, but let's try to do things differently than what that looks like now. And then ended up taking over a local high school, Palmetto High School here as well. So I'm running a high school team and then running a facility, and just I'm trying to make – my mind's going crazy all the time, trying to make ends meet, and thank goodness for good people around you that help you get your goals accomplished. But I'm a year in now with the facility and loving it. And it's crazy days, but it's long days, but it's worthwhile days, because you're starting to see some fruit start to happen already, even with the kids that you've been working with. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of background.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. And let's before we get into all of your coaching experience, let's talk about it. It's HitLab, right? It's obviously right behind you. You see the logo. Tell us about HitLab. Like, what were your goals in that? You mentioned it's a facility, but what were your goals really what were you trying to achieve in building this facility?
Sure. The ultimate goal was to give parents a better quality brand of baseball reps, knowledge for their kids, to team with these parents, to come alongside if they believed in our mission, which again, our mission, I don't know if you can even see this, that's bad, but it's basically growing the whole athlete as athletic, humble, and resilient competitor. So you're growing the athlete athletically, humbly, and a resilient competitor. Those four aspects were what we really wanted to impress into our kids, that when you come, you're going to get tougher, stronger, more confident, belief in yourself. I mean, everybody wants awareness of where your kid stands. How do you partner with these parents? And there's drama so many other places, different places. There's craziness, different places. But if you can be out front with expectations and be clear and just say, hey, here's our goal. This is what we're aiming for. It might not look exactly the same, because with the Pirates, kids learn different ways. It's not just the old school way of stand, talk for 15, sometimes the long-winded coach just can't shut up. And it's like, no, like, it's all good information, but these kids aren't processing after the first 10 to 12 words you just said. They're zoned out.
Exactly.
So how can you keep it short, clear, crisp, to the point, and then less talk, more do, less talk, more do. Excuse me. But so that was the goal, to continue to bring a fair price, because parents are spending a lot of money for this. So continue to make it a fair price, but bring up the quality of coaching that parents and kids are getting. And how do you do that? Well, I can only be at one place at one time, so we've got to multiply coaches. So good young coaches are who we're trying to multiply. We're trying to instill. And that's not an overnight thing, right? I mean, that takes time too for young coaches to be around, to absorb, to watch, to listen, and then to try to make it their own. But if you can be out front, be purposeful with your communication, even on how we lay out plans, and what's the purpose of this drill, and what's the goal of that, and how do you encourage, and not, it's not a don't speak and don't, right? It's keep speaking what you want. Keep speaking. Hey, keep moving that right foot. Good. Hey, keep being on time. That a boy. Keep encouraging. Baseball is such a hard game. I'm not going to say, oh, that was horrible. Oh, no, this is positivity up the wazoo, because everybody's hard on themselves enough of trying to be perfect in this game. So long-winded, back to, we wanted to start a nice quality organization that parents saw as, ooh, this could be more life-giving, growing up the whole person too, and not just the athletic person, but how do we grow them up, young boys into young men, learning that, man, life's not fair sometimes, and that's what baseball is about too. And how do we handle our emotions? How do we handle the mental side, the confidence, and learning? And so there's so many things you can tie into, but we thought, hey, if we could get something started slowly and kind of let it build organically, like, I'm not trying to get out there in front of everybody. It's not for everybody. People think they've got the way. Perfect. There's tons of places you can go. But we're a little bit more quiet under the radar. It's kind of like your backyard little hitting facility that people just love to come to, but we have a facility, and basically for our travel kids. So when you're part of the team, you get to come here 24/7. You can work out, you can do your stuff. You work out with the team during practices, and it's been cool. We jump on fields though. We get on field practices just as much, but I mean, weather's bad everywhere, right? So if it's hot or if it's rainy or if it's crazy, it's so nice to have an indoor facility to be able to get some reps in during bad weather. So hopefully that answered a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like a great facility, and it's awesome when a community can come together and have a facility like that, especially travel ball players who are taking it obviously a lot more seriously when they're in travel ball, and they have goals and aspirations of where they want to be. And what you mentioned something really important, I think there. That is around the mental side and the failure side of this game. And one of the things that I heard was something that's actually affecting my team even right now in travel ball, and that is the failure, the getting too down on themselves for failing. Like, for example, I'll bring up an example. I had a pitcher the other night, threw a good inning, gave up a single during that inning. And on the way back to the dugout, no runs given up, none allowed, was kicking around at the dirt and moping about giving up a hard single. And I thought, this is something that, and it's a regular thing kind of for this particular player. And I'm thinking, this is a hard game. This is a game full of failure. You didn't even give up any runs, just give up a single and got all three of the other outs. So what do you say to a player like that? What has your approach been when you see things like that, where it's really actually a really positive outcome, but just because they gave up a hit, all of a sudden it's like the end of their world?
Yeah. I think it starts at the beginning, before their outing even starts. And this is what we learned too with our pitching guys and whatever it is, whatever form, whether it's base running, defense, hitting. Like, what are your three goals that we're going to try to hit today? And maybe it's on the pitching side. It's, hey, let's have goals of 3 pitches or less of getting that guy out or putting the ball in play. How many first pitch strikes can we throw? Really, it's goals that he can have a little more control over, rather than the result oriented. Oh, I'm swinging for a hit, and if I don't get a hit, then I'm not good at all. Outside of, hey, I want to swing at a good pitch in my zone. If I hit it hard, guess what? That's a win. That's a quality at bat if you hit it hard. And so I would hopefully refocus him on what are your goals for the game? Dude, you did great. You attacked the zone early on these other at bats. The guy found a hole. Whoop-de-doo. It's got to be so much more of, so what, next pitch? So what? Don't care. Move on to the next thing. You cannot let the emotions get you too high or too low. If you get caught just dwelling on stuff, then you're done. And that's the mental midget aspect of the game. So I need my guy to stay locked in on the good. Yeah, he gave up a hit. So what? Was your goal to go hit no hitter for your whole season or something? It's going to happen, man. Yeah. It's going to happen. How did you react after that hit given up? All right, next batter up. You came in, you threw strike one. Awesome. You kept attacking the zone. You got the next hitter out. Perfect, dude. Nice job. That's the encouragement side that I'd try to impress on a kid like that.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because I've seen a couple of different ways that coaches have dealt with that. And my preference is to do exactly as you said, which is to kind of pull them aside, have a conversation about what they can and can't control, and obviously not be worried as much about giving up a hit. And this is just everything you just essentially said. But then I'll watch coaches across the way who kind of let them just kick around the dirt, kind of let them bash around their equipment in the dugout. Don't really pull them aside in the game. Now, I've actually had this conversation as part of coaching courses a little bit, where some coaches say, well, I'll rather deal with that in practice and not really deal with that aspect in the game. And while I agree with that from a fundamentals and skill teaching standpoint, deal with that stuff in practice, you're not going to reteach that in the dugout. I still think the mental thing needs to be handled right away. Would you agree?
I would completely agree. I think these coaches doing him a disservice unless he hasn't made clear what the expectations for the team are going to be. So the culture side is huge on a team, and one guy's not bigger than another guy per what he's allowed to do. Are you allowed to not hustle down the line after you get jammed on a ball just because I didn't barrel it, so now poor pitiful me, I'm not going to run hard? No, You pull the kid off because you're like, dude, I need your best effort all the time, and you hold the kid accountable. If you think, oh, he's allowed to show his emotions that way, no, we don't act like that. That's immature baseball. We're playing the right way. We're showing respect to the game. We're showing respect to the other team, the umpire. But we're controlling we play with emotions, but we're not controlled by our emotions, right? So it's I think Clint Hurdle might have even said it one way. You play with emotions, but you don't play emotionally. I think that's the way he said, or somebody has said it, right? So it's good to have passion and get after it, but if you're so sidetracked in different aspects of the highs and the lows that you're just all over the place, I mean, that's a mess. You're a mess. A coach can't depend on you to be a leader, and that's ultimately too.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You mentioned a really important part of that I didn't even really combine with this, but really it is the team culture. When you see a guy kind of pouting and throwing their equipment and things like that, but also turning it to plays out on the field. Like we've seen a couple of times where there's selfish play, right? And what I mean by that is, guys trying to steal a bag. He's stealing. We had this example the other night where player on first got a huge jump up of a guy with a slow delivery. He's halfway to second already by the time the pitch is just about to be delivered. Batter can clearly see that and should probably not swing. Swings, lines out to short. Our guy that was running is now a dead duck out there because he's already at second. And you've got now that selfish play where the guy just thought, this is a juicy pitch, I'm going to try to hit it. Even though you see your player is way off the bag. What's the conversation in the dugout after that play, in your mind?
So that's how coaches lose their hair, and their hair turns gray faster, right? But ultimately, we should understand the situation too and have practiced it. So I can't get on my player for not getting a bunt down if we don't practice it. Yeah. And if we haven't practiced it well, if we haven't understood, hey, guess what, guys? I've got the steal sign, or that guy ahead of you is pretty fast. If he's got the green light because the delivery is slow to the plate, be a good teammate and let the ball pass, especially if it's early in the count. Now, if it's 2 strikes, absolutely, you got to put the ball in play, right? You got to fight if it's a close play. Yeah. So if a guy's going to steal, you're hoping he's going to steal earlier in the count, and the guy behind him is smart enough to know, hey, he's got a chance to steal. I'd rather hit the guy in scoring position than possibly as a double play type position. So that's where we've got to let our hitters know and our players know, if he gets on, dude, I'm giving him the green light or I'm giving him the steal. So you're not swinging. You let him steal. Let him take the base. And sometimes you say that to even our high school kids, and the guys like, oh, I totally forgot. Oh, I didn't even. I'm like, oh my god,
I missed the sign, or
yeah. So you take everything with a grain of salt, and you try to be patient, and okay. But guys that show that they can't be depended on like that, well, guess what? You're going to be depending on the bench here right now, because I can't depend on you to make good decisions. So, but it does start with expectations up front, and if you can be clear with that, and then it's like, okay, guys, hey, let the guy go. But if you double them off, okay, you come back, you talk to them on the bench, maybe real quick if they're not going out to defense or in between innings, and you just say, hey, explain to me what happened. What was going on? Explain to me what did you see out there, hitter? What? And he'll say, man, that was a juicy fastball. I couldn't wait, and I just wanted to crush it. And you're like, okay, give me more. Did you see anything else happening? Oh yeah, the guy was pretty quick. I didn't notice it, but I'm like, dude, we got you. It's in your peripheral. It's right there. You see it. You got to be able to pick it up. But I want to get his point of view first to see what his take was, and then say, hey, remember what we talked about before, and then we'll reiterate it. And you can only have 1 or maybe 2 of those talks, and then it's like, dude, I mean, now it's like I can't trust you, so we'll give somebody else a chance right now.
Exactly, and that's a tough thing. The player I'm thinking of, one of our top players too, right? So, and you don't want to discourage them in any way, but you also have to make sure that the selfishness is kind of gone too. And you want to be, I mean, baseball's a team sport, right? Whether you like it or not. I mean, you can pad your stats, you can talk about your own personal launch angle and other things, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of the game. And I think when you have aspirations to go further in the game, individual results will not be the whole thing that's looked at, right? It's going to be, and you can speak to experience from this, I'm sure, because obviously being in the major leagues yourself, I'm sure there's times where you've seen guys that have great talent that just get too selfish and they don't go anywhere, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, and there's stubbornness in the, let's say in the pro side, in the minor leagues, kids are coming up and, man, I know how to hit. Okay. All right. You're hitting $190. It's not getting you too good. Right. And so it's a constant realization and a conversation with these on the pro side is like, you've got 1,000 kids waiting outside the door here that want to take your spot. If you're not producing and you're not making adjustments or changes, and guess what? Now we have a ton of data to validate why there's possibility of we need you to adjust. If you're still not willing to adjust, you're probably not going to stay in the game very long. And that's unfortunate. But if most guys now, they do a lot of scouting and they see how coachable kids are. The more coachable you can be, how you sit, you listen, you learn, you take it in from the coach. And then you filter it. So you've got to get to a maturity side too that, okay, but this coach tells me to do this, so I'm going to do that. Oh, but then this coach the next day tells me to do this, so now I'm going to do this. And I mean, Josh Bell, I got to coach
something the opposite of all of you.
Yeah. So I've had players that have been like, man, they love people pleasing so much that they're trying everything and that they're not sticking to a plan. And now you're more confused than anything. That all comes back to the saying of there's multiple ways to get the end result of what you want. So what works best for you as a respectful kid early? Yes, you listen, you apply, you try it, but ultimately the kid has to take ownership for his career. And if you want something, you like it, perfect, go for it. That's the one you're gonna die on the cross for, or whatever you're gonna die on the sword for. Good, go for it. But also, if it's not working, if their numbers aren't showing up, then let's make some adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. We're at the 12U level right now, and adjustments are a big thing for us this season, right? You know, you get to the early stages. I know in the States, we set up kids, I think, to have tremendous success in the very early years, coach pitch, or in Canada, we have a machine pitch. It's pitching into the same spot almost every time unless you've got a haywire machine. And the kids are hitting 800. Then they go and they face pitching at a 9U or 10U level, and the world completely changes. And if you're not ready for that as a coach, your team is really going to suffer, right? Because, even at that young age, they go, what the heck happened? 800 batting. I was hitting everything last year off the machine or off the coach, and now I can't hit anything. And they're coming back frustrated. So you brought up quality of bats before. I think that's a huge thing that a coach can use to say, hey, did you move the guy up? Did you go to a full count? Did you, find the different ways to have a conversation about quality of bats and what they are? That's at the early levels, but I think that's, you've got some great conversation pieces you just shared, even at the 12U and up levels, that I think are really, really important. Having that conversation, asking questions. I love what you said about what did you see out there, and then ask that question again so you can find out what else did you see out there, rather than just jumping all over the player for not executing what was going on out there, right? So beautiful, beautiful answers there. I want to ask you a question about coaching a high school versus with full of players that have travel ball also. How do you manage that, especially around pitching? Because I assume, there'll be days where the travel ball kid might tell you, oh, coach, sorry, I can't pitch today because I got ball tonight. Right? How do you kind of manage expectations to manage the two teams going on in those cases?
Coach. It's not easy, first off, as you know, it's not easy. I think there's different ways I could answer this, but the difference in how are we training our kids, and I want to go towards that aspect, because on the younger side, how are we training them to throw? How are we training them to move? How are we training them to solve problems? And this is something that the Pirates got heavily into in 13, 15, somewhere in the mid-teens, and brought in some creative thinkers on how the body moves and how we process stuff, and really do words matter? But the body's got to feel it. So you got to put kids in situations to feel a certain thing, and how then you can actually kind of learn how to make things work. But if we're training a pitcher to do mechanically right things at maybe 8 or 9 or 10 already, we're under the understanding, let's just teach them to throw right. And we'd much rather have them, if they can move their body and just throw, guess what? You can throw from the mound. We don't call you a pitcher really, but you're going to throw from the mound. And if you're accurate and can play catch from the mound, perfect. We need guys to be able to throw, and because we can't ruin arms so early in their career. So we really want to teach that. Hitting wise, is there a perfect mechanic? Well, you got to do this. You got to do, dude, get to an athletic position, and then let's solve the problem. We're going to create so what is it? Rhythm, timing, vision, balance. All these 4 things encompass hitting. Let's get them unbalanced. Let's make it hard for them to see. Let's make the timing aspect something that's a challenge. Let's maybe take away some rhythm, and let's see if they can still find ways to barrel the ball. And in doing some math problems or some problem solving in the training, guess what? Now you go back to just a regular stance, a balanced position, a simple approach with your regular bat. It's not 10 ounces, 12 ounces heavier or lighter. Now all I got to do is barrel this ball on a pitch that's coming right down the middle or around this area. I can do that in a heartbeat. And so it's a fun, competitive changing of environments all the time, changing of solutions. Like, hey, now I want you to hit. Now we're doing this. Hey, now it's one leg up. Hey, now it's unbalanced in this way. Hey, now it's backside hitting, and now and there's a goal every single time, and there's a winner and there's a loser, and there's consequences. So you've got push-ups. If you lose, there's like, okay, let's throw this, and okay, first guy hits it off the tee, or the competition, everybody's cheering you on, and you got to throw that strike under pressure, or there's consequences. If we can create that kind of environment in our practices, games slow down, and there's no more anxiety. There's no more because you've been doing it in practice all the time, and that's just a little bit of how we're trying to bring in a little bit newer style of learning, faster pace. A little outside the box thinking of how, and we're seeing it start to grow in the pro side or in the colleges. They're doing different variety of training and aspects with different bats and different machines and different stuff. But it really does come down to building the athletic move of how does the body move? How do the hips move? And some kids just, their bodies are different. So you got to do what you can with that body. Some are lankier, some are stretchier, some are stiffer. Okay, not everybody can do the same. So we've got to find a way to, okay, how do you do it, dude? Okay, how about you? How do you get there? Okay. And that's the fun of exploring and trying to meet each kid where they're at, and then still kind of creating some fun goals or fun drills that encompass getting them to that next spot of building confidence and finding barrels or finding how to release it. And then ultimately, when you're done to practice too, they're dog tired, and they're just like, you want them. Hey, we want to keep. No. We'll see you. We'll see you next time. What? Yeah. We want to keep. No, leave them wanting more, man.
Yeah, that's interesting too. You brought up a really interesting point that made me think of something that we've seen this year, especially with outfielders. But one of the things we're seeing, obviously, at a higher level now, they're older. More balls are headed out into the outfield, and oftentimes, we've got some great outfielders that in a practice. Ground ball, hard hit out to the outfield, great approach into their glove, throw into second or throw into the cut, whatever. They do it beautifully. But then when the heat of competition happens in the game, they'll often overrun the ball, or they'll just not. You can see the eyes come up too early because they are thinking about what to do next. How do you? And I think you kind of explained that in a little bit of that of what you just said, and I think that's through the competition and the consequences. What's your recommendation in a practice for something like that? How do you create the intensity of a game? And maybe it is just those competitions you were talking about, but what unique ways do you use to create that intensity so that they might still be attempted to overrun that ball, so we can start to correct it in a high pressure situation?
Yeah. Well, again, anything is just the more you practice something, the more comfortable they are with things. But as an outfielder, I played in the outfield. I took a ton of reps every day, even before our games, going to your left, going to your right, do or dies. How do you – well, you've got to practice it. So what some of the things we do is just with a clock, and as soon as you catch the ground ball or fly ball, we start a clock. As soon as you get rid of it, we stop the clock, and then we always have a target that they're trying to throw to. So we'll do how fast and how accurate can you catch this and get rid of it. And sometimes we'll err, hey, I don't care where the accuracy is. See how fast you can do it. Like, just see how crazy fast it could be. And and usually those numbers are somewhere between 0.7, 0.8 up to like 1.3 to 1.5 seconds. So it'll end up, they'll try like a 1.7 as fast as they can. And the throw's just crazy because their footwork's all off and they're trying to do it too fast. But then they try to do it. They slow it way down. They go through it. And it's like a 1.8 or a 2 seconds that they took a traveling extra shuffle, and then they made a more accurate throw. So you've got now them feeling, what's my 100% craziness, hair on fire try, and then what's my, hey, I'm almost going in slow motion trying it. Where's my happy medium? Once I find my happy medium of where it's at, now I'm practicing reading the ball, speed of the ball. How do I adjust? How do I go get it? How do I read the hop? If it's my left foot forward, my right foot forward, I don't really care, but get comfortable with one of them and make sure we catch the ball first. And as soon as we're, cutting that distance, we're looking to make that good hop, catch that ball in the sweet spot. And now we're up and we're firing and we're letting it go. But they have to know kind of how quick they can be under control. And so you got to practice both ends of it as an outfielder, at least from my viewpoint, on what could be. So
I love that. I love the timing side of things and just keeping that pressure on so that it's kind of game ready stuff, right? And I think there's so many coaches across the board that just, hit reps. The reps are important, but I think, you have to add some of that game atmosphere back into it, or you may not see the improvement in the games, right?
We do it with infielders as well. If you mess up on a thing, hey, it don't matter. You just got to go do a push-up. And there's always a consequence to it. And it's embarrassing because you're like, I know it's one push-up. What's that going to do? But still, you got to do it in front of your teammates because you're out there in team practice. And you're like, I don't want to be the guy who has to do the push-up. So you're trying to be cool and you're trying to do it. But it's like, even on a ground ball or a fly ball, always have a consequence where if you don't do it cleanly, there's something you got to do that you kind of don't want to do, but it's annoying. And so it motivates you to continue to stay focused and locked in. And again, it's peer pressure to its best, because peer pressure, it can be a really good thing like that. But it also, maybe you do competitions constantly, right? If, hey, more than 2 or 3 errors, then it's 10 push-ups, or you do a lap, or, the winner who has the least amount gets a Gatorade or something goofy. But you're always trying to compete in some way. And the best of the best don't even need those things. They just compete because I want to be the best. I'm going to beat you every single time, no matter what the drill is, right? And those are the kind of kids you hope to have eventually on your team. And then you feed off that, and everybody feeds off their personality and their desire of wanting to compete. But if they're looking to get better and to grow, guess what? It's going to be messy. You're going to make errors. Stuff is going to happen, but that's where you learn. And we're just trying to make less of them over time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all great advice. That's excellent. This has actually been incredible. I know I only have you for a half hour, but I appreciate the time that you've taken here today. I got to put you on the spot for one thing, and you don't have to name names, but this is a coaching podcast. What is the worst thing you've ever seen a coach do?
Ooh,
You were just like, wow, I can't believe he thinks that's
it was something similar to coaches allowing kids to get away with stuff. And there was a kid in high school that was one of their star players, and he was pitching. It was like the 5th, 6th inning. He was done. He was shot. He had pitched a great game, but he was so pissed that the coach was coming out. He literally was walking off the mound and just flipped the ball, and it like hit the ground, and the coach didn't do anything. He didn't blow up on him. He didn't even, hey, get back here. That's not how you do type stuff. That was one of the things I was like, oh my goodness, this team or the family of that guy owns you or does something, right? And then I'll talk to him afterwards, and I'm like, what happened? He's like, oh, these kids these days, you just can't. I'm like, no. That's the laziness on you, dude. You're not setting the expectations that need to be set. That's not how you play this game. You play the game with respect and do things the right way. And that's how we try to do it. It's easier said than done, because when it comes down to it, it's tough to have those hard conversations and to hold the line, especially when it's like maybe it's close family friends, or maybe it's somebody that you're like, oh, it's the principal's son, or it's the, somebody like, oh, I can't hardly say it. No, dude. I mean, you've signed up for this team. Here are my expectations going in. We're holding everybody accountable. The best advice I got from another coach was, the best player on your team, have your eyes on him constantly. And again, he's going to be your dude. But if there's one thing that maybe he does and it's half-hearted, maybe it's a jog to first on a base hit, or it's not a very hard run out to his position, or it's something that you can get on him, and literally get on him in a healthy way and pull him out of the game. But guess what that does? It shows every other player, not anybody is untouchable on this team. Like, I will discipline that top guy, and we'll lose with other players. Like, even on our pro guys, we did that. One of my awesome coaches did it. We put pitcher only guys in the field, and we're trying to win. But he said, listen, your actions created this. If you're running hard and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, instead of being like, look at me, selfish boy, I never get out, and I've got to take you out of the game, and now I got to put in a PO, and I've got to put in another pitcher that is not used to playing, and we lose. That's not on me. That's on you, because you couldn't hold the line of what we're supposed to be doing. And if you can do that early on, everybody's kind of like, oh boy, if he's going to do that to him, he could do that to me, and they're all in. You build that culture, and it's pretty fun from there on out. But that was just one instance. I've seen a bunch just talk garbage all the time, and it's just like, dude, shut up. Just
that's probably a real common one. The coaches talking garbage for sure. But no, that's a great example. I love that example, because it does happen a lot, I think, and there's a lot of coaches that don't really know how to approach that. So I appreciate your advice on that. Lastly here, tell us where is HitLab? How can people go and visit it? Maybe they're in the Florida area, they want to go check it out. But where do we go? Is there a website?
Is actually Our location is where we're at. It's near Bradenton, Florida, and it's south of St. Pete, Tampa, St. Pete area. So it's about 45 minutes south of Tampa. You fly into the west side of Florida, a little bit further south. It's really cool. We're in the heart of Sarasota. We're just north of Sarasota. Lakewood Ranch has been an up-and-coming area, kind of a Scottsdale of the area type setup. And but we've got a website, either HitLab Palmetto, hitlabpalmetto.com, or you could do hitlabbaseballteams.com. Go to the website, check it out. A lot of good information. We've got kind of our philosophy breakdown, not a ton of teaching drills or anything, but just some cool understanding of why we're in business, why we're trying to do what we're doing, and love connecting with people that are from the same kind of mold and trying to push the right way and go in the right direction, right? Trying to help build these kids and these families and give them understanding, because the parents, sometimes the parents just don't know, right? They don't know, and there's fear of the unknown and fear of not knowing. So you're trying to give them your best advice, your best wisdom of what you've gone through, and ultimately it's their decision. But it's fun to help educate and grow these kids, these families, and ultimately we'll be doing that by growing coaches. So I wish you and your staff too all the best, and hopefully continue to grow coaches. And it seems like an awesome thing by having podcasts like this where people can listen and hopefully get a nugget or two of stuff on how they can apply it to what they're doing.
Well, I think there was about 12 nuggets in this episode, so I appreciate that. I know a bunch of coaches that will be watching this that will appreciate that as well. Kory, thank you so much for being here and doing this for us. And I know you're busy with everything that you're doing, especially in the summertime. So thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure, Chris. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, you as well. For Kory DeHaan, thank you guys for watching our podcast. Kory, obviously, former Major Leaguer, former Major League coach, Arizona, Pittsburgh. Did I get them all?
Yeah.
I did. Good. And now current high school coach and, of course, co-owner of, are you the co-owner or the actual founder?
No, I'm the main owner.
Main owner of the HitLab. So next time you're in Florida, go and visit HitLab as well. Lot of great information today. Very much appreciated. And thank you very much, Kory.
Awesome. My pleasure, man.
That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. For Kory DeHaan, I'm Chris Baker, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for being here on this episode of Views from the Bucket. We hope you've gained some valuable curveballs of wisdom and that they'll help you on your coaching journey. Remember, the diamond is where we shape not just players, but young lives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show so that we can continue bringing you the best in the world of coaching. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover or a guest you'd love to hear from, drop us a line. We're all about helping you become the best coach you can be. Until next time, keep that bucket of knowledge and passion overflowing, and keep inspiring young ball players to be the leaders of the future. Play ball.